Do you believe a single hug can change a life? A boy with anxiety disorder who hadn't touched anyone in 6 years suddenly stepped forward to embrace a stranger in a small diner. A cold-hearted billionaire who once thought love was a secondary factor in life stood frozen witnessing that moment, and from then on his entire inner world shifted. No miracles, no special therapy, just a pair of arms opened at the right time from a heart gentle enough. This story will make you believe sometimes the only thing a person needs to start over is someone who doesn't try to fix them. Chapter 1. The Cold Father and the Unexpected Hug. Some moments feel trivial, ordering breakfast, sipping coffee, but turn out to be the epicenter of an irreversible turning point. Daniel Stone didn't believe in moments. He believed in structure, data, and plans. Having built a global logistics empire from nothing through razor-sharp negotiations, he was used to control from markets to his employees' every word. But that morning at a small diner called Maggie's, he sat motionless like a fool, unable to control his own son. Leo Stone, 6, with curly blonde hair like a bird's nest, sat across from him, his body curled up like tangled thread. He didn't look around, didn't speak, didn't touch the spoon, didn't reach for the steaming muffin in front of him. Each time a dish clattered in the kitchen, his shoulders flinched as if bracing for punishment. Daniel felt the air thicken between them. He didn't know what to say, what to do, where to touch. The therapists he'd hired for hundreds of thousands of dollars never taught him how to sit with a child like this, especially when that child was his son, more foreign to him than a difficult business partner. Emily Vargas watched from afar, pouring coffee for an elderly couple by the window. She wasn't eavesdropping or prying, but the way the boy sat with small hands, clenched eyes, fearful shoulders, hunched as if dodging an invisible blow, tugged at her heart. Those signs were familiar, too familiar, like the children with trauma she'd cared for as a pediatric nurse. She approached their table gently, not bending down, not smiling too brightly. Her eyes met Daniel's, a nod enough to say, "I see your son, and I'm not afraid." "Would he like a glass of warm milk?" she asked softly, her voice gentler than the sunlight streaming through the glass. Leo didn't answer, but he looked up briefly for a split second, then lowered his eyes. For Emily, that was enough. Daniel tilted his head toward her, about to speak, when clang, a plate shattered in the kitchen. Leo's body jolted as if shocked. He clutched his head, eyes wide, rocking back and forth with sharp, ragged breaths. The diner froze. People stopped eating, stopped talking. Daniel stiffened, one hand outstretched but unable to reach. "Leo," he said, his voice sharp with worry, "it's just a plate. It's okay." But Leo didn't hear him. He was trapped in his own storm, one Daniel had never learned to enter with him. And then Emily stepped forward. She didn't rush, didn't shout reassurances, didn't try to do something. She simply knelt a few steps away and quietly opened her arms, palms up, not inviting, not forcing. Just present, fully, calmly, truly. Daniel was stunned. In all his years running an empire, no one had surprised him like this. He looked at her, an ordinary woman, no title, no contract, just a heart doing what the best doctors couldn't. Leo looked at her. For a moment the world stopped. He stood slowly, trembling, and stepped toward her and hugged her tightly. No one in the diner spoke. Daniel's hand still hung in the air. Part of him wanted to stop his son, but another part, he didn't know anymore. He'd never been hugged by his son. Never thought he'd see this. His heart didn't ache. It choked as if something soft had slipped into the abandoned land of his emotions. Emily said nothing. She just wrapped her arms around the trembling boy in her embrace. And Daniel sat there witnessing, not a miracle, but something strangely ordinary, a hug at the right moment between two people, without shared blood, but with shared unconditional acceptance. That morning, Daniel said little as they left, but his eyes, for the first time in years, weren't cold. They were heavy. He couldn't understand why what countless doctors and advice couldn't do, a waitress did with open arms. But he knew one thing for certain: if there was a spark of hope to reach his son, it had just begun here. Chapter 2. The Wordless Invitation in Days with Leo. 2 weeks later, Stone Mansion, Santa Fe, New Mexico. Some people enter your life without knocking, without fanfare, leaving only a trace of warmth, and making it impossible to return to who you were. Emily Vargas had never received an invitation like the one that day. Not because it was at a luxurious mansion on a Santa Fe hill with an iron gate nearly 10 feet tall and impeccably dressed security, but because the person waiting for her in the courtyard wasn't an assistant or a butler. It was Daniel Stone himself. No suit jacket, no phone, no commanding air of a global logistics tycoon. Just a father wondering what he'd done wrong and whether he could start over. "Thank you for coming," Daniel said, his voice low, and measured each word carefully chosen. Emily nodded, clutching an old canvas bag filled with picture books, half-used crayons, and creased white paper. "I'm not bringing expectations," she said softly. "Just patience." Daniel led her through a stone-tiled hallway past a small garden to the brightest room in the mansion, the sunroom, not vast, but with floor-to-ceiling windows where light poured in like a stream. Leo sat on a fluffy rug, clutching an old stuffed bear, his back to them. He heard their footsteps but didn't turn. Daniel started to speak, but Emily touched his shoulder lightly, a signal. "I'll go slow." In the days that followed, Emily didn't try to be friendly in the usual way. She didn't ask big questions like, "How do you feel today?" or "Do you miss your mom?" She just sat, set down her bag, pulled out a sketchbook, and asked softly, "Want to draw today or hear a story?" Leo didn't answer, but his eyes flicked toward the crayon box. Day one, he watched her draw a turtle afraid of thunder, a lost cat finding home. The drawings weren't beautiful, the lines scribbled the brush dry. But Emily's storytelling turned a silent room into a world. Day three, Leo picked up a green crayon and added a cloud to the corner of her paper. Day five, he leaned lightly against her arm while listening to a story. Day 10, he spoke his first 3 words to her: "Draw another tree." Daniel watched it all from the doorway. Each afternoon, he stood a few steps away, silently observing, not interrupting, not questioning, but his eyes changed daily from doubt to surprise to quiet reflection. One morning, Emily arrived earlier than usual. She entered the sunroom and saw Leo sitting by the window, looking at the garden. On the small sofa beside him was a drawing, neatly placed 2 stick figures, with arms outstretched, a red crayon heart between them. No names, no caption, but Emily knew it was her and Leo, and that hug, the first in his life, had taken shape in his mind. She smiled silently, tucked the drawing into her bag as if it were the most priceless gift she'd ever received. Daniel was at his desk when Emily passed by. He called her back, his voice unclear if it was a command or a plea. "Why do you think he hugged you that day?" he asked, blunt as someone analyzing a balance sheet. Emily didn't answer immediately. She looked at him longer than an employee should, then said softly, "Some kids don't need fixing. They just need someone who doesn't try to fix anything." Daniel leaned back. A long silence. Then he sighed, a strange sound even he didn't recognize from his own chest. "Do you have kids?" he asked unexpectedly. Emily shook her head. "No, but I was a child who wasn't hugged." Her answer left Daniel speechless, but his eyes softened. As time passed, the afternoons in the sunroom became routine. Leo could now sit close to Emily, sometimes resting his head on her shoulder, dozing off mid-story. Each time, Daniel quietly walked away, leaving them in a space where he felt he was no longer the center. Strangely, that didn't hurt. It felt like relief. One day, as Emily left the mansion, Daniel entered the sunroom. Leo was drawing a tree. He didn't look at his father, didn't run away. He just held out another paper, 3 stick figures, a man, a child, and a woman. The heart this time was between the child and him. Daniel froze. Leo glanced at him, then turned away. But that small gesture made Daniel feel as if he'd been given another life. Chapter 3, The Storm from a Photo in a Hasty Judgment. What takes years to build can crumble with a single blurry photo. Daniel Stone stared at his phone as the car stopped outside Stone Global Logistics headquarters. Morning sunlight slanted across the screen, highlighting the headline at the top of the news page. "Billionaire's son, Leo Stone, clings to diner waitress. Shocking hug." Below was a low-quality photo taken through Maggie's Diner's frosted glass. Leo, his face pressed into Emily's shoulder, arms wrapped tightly. His expression wasn't clear, but the bond was undeniable. Emily's profile was visible, her posture calm as always. But nothing was calm anymore. Within hours, the post spread from tabloid blogs to national news. Comments erupted. "Who is she? Why let a billionaire's son near a stranger like that? Is she a nanny in disguise?" Daniel gripped his phone until his knuckles whitened. No one had asked him first. No one knew the truth. But what unsettled him most was that he wasn't sure of the truth himself. That night in his empty mansion office, Daniel sat alone. His laptop displayed contracts, emails piled up, his phone buzzed nonstop. But he did nothing. He stared at the printed photo on his desk, a nagging reminder that he'd let someone into the private world he'd kept locked. Part of him wanted to call Emily to ask to confirm, But a larger part, the part that lived on logic and fear of betrayal, whispered, if she was truly innocent, she would have warned you. She wouldn't have let this be photographed. Emotion clashed with defense, and as always, he chose defense. Emily received a message from the shift manager that evening. Daniel Stone requests all contact, including visits, to cease. No further visits needed, no additional reasons provided, no explanation, no questions asked, not a single message from him. Emily didn't cry. She sat quietly in the break room, pulling out Leo's drawing, two figures and a red heart. Her fingers traced the childish crayon lines. After a moment, she took a blank sheet, folded it in half, and wrote in soft, round letters. Not everyone needs words. Sometimes a calm hand outstretched is enough. No name, no explanation, no demands. After her shift, she walked to the Stone Mansion's gate. Didn't ring the bell. Didn't wait. Just slipped the envelope into the mailbox and walked away, her posture straight and slow, like someone who knew she'd given her all, and silence was all that remained. In the quiet mansion, time passed without Emily's footsteps, her stories, or the scratch of crayons on paper. No more of Leo's soft laughter when she drew a three-legged turtle or a sun wearing a hat. Leo slipped back into silence. Not anger or outbursts, just a cold, quiet retreat. Daniel noticed it sooner than he expected. Mornings, Leo no longer waited by the window. He pushed the crayon box aside, skipped breakfast. When Daniel accidentally dropped a spoon, Leo flinched, clutching his head, just like their first day at Maggie's. On the third night after the incident, Daniel passed Leo's room and saw the nightlight still on. The door was ajar. He hesitated, then pushed it open. Leo lay curled up, clutching a pillow, eyes wide open. Can't sleep, Daniel asked, softer than usual. Leo didn't answer. He hugged the pillow tighter, then whispered, this pillow isn't warm like her. Daniel felt like he'd been punched in the chest. He said nothing more. Just sat there in a new kind of silence, not of hurt, but of realizing he'd broken something precious. The next morning, passing the sunroom, Daniel saw Emily's old canvas bag on the shelf. Inside was Leo's heart drawing. This time he didn't hold back. He held it, childish, simple, but painfully true. A question echoed in his mind, unquellable. If she did nothing wrong, why didn't I ask before ending it? Chapter 4, The Letter to a Gone Father, A Journey of Self-Forgiveness. Daniel Stone sat motionless at his walnut desk in the sunlit study. Late afternoon light fell in silent streaks across the wooden floor, as if pulling time into stillness. Before him, a blank sheet of paper lay beside Leo's drawing, three stick figures and a heart in the middle. He stared at the third figure, a silver-haired man standing a distance from the heart. Daniel was used to writing. Contracts, memos, negotiation letters. Each word was strategy, each period a calculation. But this letter wasn't for a deal. It was one he'd never send because its recipient, his father, had been gone for years. 2 days earlier, a security report confirmed the photo sparking the media storm was taken by a random passerby, unrelated to Emily or any staff. No intent, no scheme. Just a chance snapshot, as if fate mocked him while he was learning to trust something new. Yet he'd chosen the easiest path, cut it off, retreat, like his father had done with him throughout childhood. Silent, harsh, distant. Leo stopped talking. He hugged his pillow at night, whispering, not warm, like her. And Daniel knew Leo wasn't just talking about Emily. He was talking about him. The next day, unannounced, Emily returned. No canvas bag, no crayons or books. She sat across from Daniel in the study, eyes direct, voice softer than a breath. I think you should write to your father. Not to send, just to say what you've never said. Daniel gave a faint laugh at first, but seconds later it faded. Something flickered in his eyes. He understood it was time to stop hiding behind logic. He picked up the pen, his hand trembled. Father once so I don't know why I'm writing to you today. Maybe because for the first time, I don't know what to say to my son. He paused, swallowing hard. Memories flooded back like cold water, silent dinners, sharp lessons, the times he reached out and met a stern, expressionless gaze. As a child, I only wanted to sit beside you, touch your hand. Just once. But you always said men don't hug, don't show weakness. Be strong through action. He stopped, glancing at the drawing. The heart sat between the child and the distance. I lived as you wanted, cold, strong, successful. But my son doesn't need a strong man. He needs one who knows how to hug. And I didn't know how. Daniel's breath quickened, but he didn't stop. For the first time, his words weren't for protection, they were for release. You never hugged me. I never hugged Leo. Maybe because I thought I wasn't allowed to. But now I understand, not hugging my son doesn't make me strong. It just makes me more like you. No tears fell, but his throat tightened. He looked at the lines closing a cycle of hurt spanning 2 generations. I'm sorry, Father. Not because you didn't hug me, but because I used that absence to build a wall between me and Leo. Today I want to break it. I'm opening my heart because my son deserves a father who loves not just through duty, but through presence. He set down the pen, tucked the letter into a drawer. No sealing, no sending. It wasn't for the dead, it was for the man he was learning to become. That evening, Daniel sat with Leo in the sunroom. No words, just sitting. Leo didn't look at him. But when a story about the thunder-fearing turtle came to mind, he whispered, "Turtle hides in its shell." Daniel nodded slowly. "But then it knows. The rain will stop." Leo turned. In his child's eyes was a wordless expectation like Emily's that day when she simply opened her arms. Daniel raised his hand, not touching, just open. An invitation. Leo hesitated, then leaned his head on his father's shoulder lightly like a fledgling bird landing. Chapter 5. The Hug Passed On. A Humanistic Ending. Some miracles don't start with bells, lights, or fireworks, but with a silent child stepping toward another, arms open. The community center's lawn glowed in the sunlight. Hand-woven blankets spread under trees, small families gathered, both nervous and hopeful. No banners, no speeches, just soft music, small speakers, old crayons, picture books, and a handwritten sign, "The First Hug." Daniel Stone stood apart from the crowd, arms crossed, shirt without a tie, his gaze softer than usual. Beside him, Emily arranged crayon boxes on a table. Children ran around, some clutching pillows, others curled up in corners, each a world of their own, as Leo once was. "You okay?" Emily asked, not looking at him, as if sensing his shifting breath. Daniel didn't answer immediately. His eyes followed Leo, sitting in a small circle where children listened to a story. Leo wasn't clutching a pillow. He sat upright, not touching anyone, but not retreating. His hands rested lightly on his knees, eyes wide, watching the storyteller, Emily, with focus. Not the gaze of a scared child, but one ready to receive the world. Near the end, a new boy arrived. Ben. Dark hair, small frame, sad eyes. He clung to his mother's leg, hiding his face. Anyone who approached made him shrink, trembling. Emily started to step forward as always, but this time she didn't have the chance. Leo stood, not rushed, not called, just stood looking at Ben for a few seconds. Then he walked over, slowly. Daniel held his breath. Emily leaned forward, ready to intervene if needed. Leo stopped before Ben, said nothing. Didn't reach out. Just opened his arms, a simple gesture one Emily had once offered him on a morning of a shattered plate and panic. As if memory flowed backward, Emily touched her chest, her heart racing. Ben looked up, hesitant, wary. 1 second, 2 seconds. Then he rushed forward, hugged Leo tightly. Leo didn't flinch. He lowered his head, hugging back. No words, no glances, just 2 children once ruled by fear, sharing a language adults didn't need to understand, just witness. The lawn fell silent. Daniel didn't know when his tears started. When Leo opened his arms, when Ben fell into them, or when he realized the boy who once wouldn't let him touch him was now giving what he'd always dreamed of. Emily said nothing. She stepped back, letting the sacred moment unfold. Leo released Ben after a few minutes. Then, in a move Daniel had never seen, he turned and walked toward him. The world held its breath. Leo stood before his father. No bowed head, no fear, no words. The small boy, once curled like a leaf, looked up, then slowly raised his arms, palms open. An invitation, a signal. A hug. Daniel choked. His knees nearly buckled. But he didn't hesitate. He knelt, pulling his son into his arms, for the first time. Not awkward, not guided. No control or analysis. Just a father holding the son he could never touch before. Leo nestled into his chest, not pulling away, not stiffening. His small body softened as if his defenses could finally rest. Daniel didn't know if people were watching. Didn't need to. He only knew he'd reached a place he hadn't known how to find for 6 years. An hour later, as the event ended, parents approached with questions. Daniel smiled, truly at ease among ordinary people for the first time. Emily stood beside him, not as a helper, but as a co-creator of a new journey. They didn't call the First Hug a charity project. No child registrations, no parent contracts, just a space, crayons, open arms, and children stepping forward when ready. It wasn't a miracle, but it was the closest thing to one they'd ever seen. As the afternoon light faded, Daniel sat with Emily under a tree where Leo and Ben drew. He spoke softer than the breeze. "I thought I was rich because of power. Now I see The richest moment is when my son hugged me, not because he needed protection, but because he trusted me. Emily nodded. No words needed. The truest things don't always need explaining. The story of Daniel, Leo, and Emily isn't a heroic epic of miracles. It's a quiet ballad of healing presence and human trust values, so simple yet increasingly rare in a hurried world. From a wealthy but emotionally impoverished father, Daniel learned to pause, letting his heart, not control, led the way. From a child afraid of touch, Leo learned to open up, not just to receive, but to give love. And from a diner waitress carrying old wounds, Emily used patience and empathy to create a safe space for others to be themselves. The story's greatest value lies not in climactic moments, but in the small ones: a nod, an open arm, a presence without force. It's a reminder that we don't need to be experts to help someone, just kind enough, calm enough, and compassionate enough. And if you ever think you're too small to make a difference, remember, a hug at the right time from the right person can save a life or more. It can restart a world. Because this world doesn't need more people fixing others. It needs more people willing to sit beside them and open their arms.